But yeah, I do have my little collection here that I have. So the only film that I'm missing is The Night Comes for Us. But I have Merantau right here. I have, of course, these two, the red one in Berandal. And then, of course, I have Headshot. Hello everyone, welcome back to the DSP channel. First off, I hope you guys are doing well. And today's topic for this video, as you can probably tell from the title itself, and I'm super excited to talk about, is Indonesian action cinema. Indonesian action cinema has a very, very special place in my heart. I did mention about this briefly in my action cinema geek journey, where I do have the video. But for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch that, or if you're completely new here, I will kind of just say that Indonesian action cinema has very much influenced and impacted me. It's probably one of my all-time most favorite martial arts action cinema genre, and it's because of the raid. Another interesting thing I want to point out is that being an action cinema geek and somebody who deeply loves and is passionate about Indonesian action cinema, it's kind of funny that whenever I get reactions from certain people, they'll ask me a question saying, hey, yeah, you know, like, what's your favorite movie or your favorite action film, right? And sometimes it's kind of funny, I'm just like, have you seen Gareth Evans' The Raid Redemption? They're just like, what? You've seen that film? And I'm just like, yeah, why? And they're just like, you don't look like somebody who would watch that film. And I'm just like, dude, what does somebody who, you know, watches The Raid, what are they supposed to look like? That's usually the kind of reactions that I get from people. Or whenever they would say like, oh, you know, have you seen The Night Comes for Us? And I'm just like, Joe Taslim? Yeah, you know, and they're just like, damn. And I guess it's, again, because action cinema is quite male dominated, you don't get much females who are often invested in the genre. But again, there are many female-led action films out there, by the way, that are amazing. For those of you who are unaware of the story that I told in that video before that I mentioned, basically when I was in university during my second year, I did take a cinema studies. I was a minor in cinema studies, and I was required to take a certain course, right? And of course me, you know, being a fan of action films, I took an action cinema course. God bless. I'm so thankful that I took that course. So my professor, right, he pretty much surprised the heck out of the entire class, and the reason being is because he showed us The Raid Redemption 2011, directed by Gareth Evans, on the very first day of the course. Technically, a lot of students, and even myself, we would assume that, you know, there would be like a blockbuster hit type of film that he would be showing, like, you know, Terminator or Die Hard or Speed or something like that. But no, my professor, my instructor, he went on an alternative route, and he showed us something that, you know, for me personally, is probably one of my all-time favorite martial arts action films of all time. Period. And I'm saying modern martial arts action film, right? As overrated as it may be, as some of you might say, or for, you know, for folks who are just like, oh my god, it's always about The Raid, when is The Raid 3 coming out, you know? Trust me, I'm on the same page as you, pal. So, you know, like, you know, I'm always constantly being like, yeah, when's The Raid 3 coming out? Which probably might not happen. It's kind of like, well, what else is Rama gonna be doing, right? I can definitely understand and feel why a lot of us, especially myself, we're still craving for more. And I think that's kind of the beauty, the magic, that I think The Raid 2 left a very special impression on all of us. I remember being in my class, being in the theater, right? There's about, in my class, there was only about 150 students, and I would say not many of them were females, right? So I would say like there was maybe about 40 or 50 of us gals in there. The rest were all, you know, they're all males, right? And I was probably one of the very few females who actually stayed through the entire film. And I remember like just hearing people just go, ugh, ew, gross, you know, during those, you know, those scenes throughout the film in The Raid. And I was just kind of just sitting there like, damn, look at those moves. As the film was playing and, you know, as we were watching the film, there was a part where I was just kind of, you know, I was just stretching my neck and my back a little bit, and I was just kind of like doing this in my seat, right? And as I kind of turn over, almost half of the students in my class were gone, and the movie was like nearly just halfway, we were just halfway through the film, right? And I was just like, damn, is it that bad? I would say it was mostly males sitting in the back, and maybe like, you know, 5 or 6 of us gals left in the audience. But yeah, I was just so intrigued by it. The scene that very much captured me, that really gravitated my attention, was probably the machete gang scene. That scene was, whew, that was intense, man. Like, if I had to kind of, you know, rewatch it again, I would still get that same adrenaline pumping feeling because of how the choreography was. It was awesome. It was just badass. That's what I'm gonna say. Top-notch choreography, top-notch cinematography, just everything about this film is just boom, badassery. You know that scene where, I think it's in the beginning, where as they're going up in the building, right? There's a guy who, he has his hands, I forgot, was it a zip tie or something? Yeah, it's under the table and he manages to get his way out of it, and he actually has a freaking machete under the table, and I was just like, oh my goodness. That scene when, I think they were all the SWAT team, right? They were in another part of the building, and I think there was like a door. There was a little kid that noticed them, and there's a slow-mo shot of him running across the hall, and he starts yelling. He's like, oh, the cops are here, right? Of course in Indonesian, right? And then all of a sudden he gets shot in the head, right, by one of the members, and then boom, the lights are out, and I'm just like, oh my god. I remember that scene, and all of us, at least in my class, right, most of us were just like, oh shit, you know, like, it was just hauntingly very, very intimidating and scary in a sense, right? And I thought, man, like, the lighting, everything about that film was just, oh, it was so epic. That film basically transformed my entire life because it made me become a hardcore fan of Indonesian action films. Obviously, not all Indonesian films are like the ones that Gareth Evans directs, but of course, I would specifically say Indonesian action cinema pretty much came to a rise due to the Raid series, right? And since childhood, I was more so surrounded by Hong Kong action cinema, more so in the Kung Fu cinema sphere within Shaw Brothers films, Golden Harvest, Cinema City. We're talking about ATV, TVB series as well. Lots of wuxia stuff involved, but this was completely new to me, and so I was just like, oh man, we gotta watch this again, you know? I deeply love and admire the Raid films just because it's not so much in terms of, I know it's very graphic and violent and very much uncomfortable to kind of sit still and watch if you're somebody who's very sensitive to those scenes, but for me, I was very intrigued and attracted to the choreography, the fight choreography, and the action design of it too. So we have our beloved Indonesian action boy, Silat Master Iko Uwais, right, starring in these films. And I think what he's really good at, especially as an action figure within the genre, he's really good at portraying vulnerability in his characters. I just don't know why, right? And I felt that when I saw The Raid, right? His skills and his talent, and I guess his acting abilities also brought him to the attention of many Hollywood action directors too, which led him to star in films such as Mile 22. I don't even want to go there, but Mile 22 is there and you probably will know why, as well as Triple Threat, which is also another very cool action film where he stars alongside other very notable action figures. We've got Scott Adkins, hello, we've got Jija Yane, we've got Michael J. White, we've got Tony Jaa, we've got Tiger Hu Chan, as well as Michael Bisping. Like, hello guys. Iconic people right there. So when it comes to Indonesian action cinema, what I really love about it is there's something very refreshing about it, at least the films that were directed by Gareth Evans. Everything is momentum, like there's nothing that kind of stops, and if it does stop, it's kind of a moment of reflection for us as viewers to kind of absorb all of the action that we've kind of witnessed, right? They are extremely well choreographed, and of course they're very well choreographed by professional fight choreographers and through the experience and talent and skills of our action boy Iko Uwais. It really has influenced a lot of our mainstream action films that we get nowadays, right? And you've had like a lot of the some of the actors like Yayan and Sisap, they went on to play, I believe, assassins, correct me if I'm wrong, in the John Wick 3. Indonesian action cinema just has a flavor that I love, which is it takes revenge to another level. For me as a viewer, I see it more in terms of admiring and looking at the action choreography. It's kind of become a cult classic, right? A cult classic action film, martial arts action film that we're talking about, where it's pretty much up here. It's very much ranked as one of the top best, you know, martial arts action films out there, so our action thriller. If you've gotten a chance to see the behind the scenes stuff, I highly recommend that you go and watch the behind the scenes of The Raid 1 and The Raid 2, because you'll see how interesting that they've kind of compiled the scenes, how every department was involved, and how they chose the setting, and how VFX was involved too when it came to like the blood and everything like that. I thought it was super cool. And what I also like about the Raid films, and going back to the drug lab scene, and I think even the Raid 2, but specifically the drugs lab scene, you get a chance to see a diversity of martial arts styles being shown, right? You have, you know, obviously there are guys who are doing pencak in the film, you have guys doing karate, you have judo being shown, I would assume maybe boxing as well, and taekwondo I believe was also shown too, but I think that was the intention, was to show the audience that, you know what, even the bad guys can kick ass, right? They're not just ones with weapons. It's like, even if they don't have weapons, they do have, you know, hand-to-hand combat scenes. And I think that also reflects on Gareth Evans as a director and a filmmaker, which is that he was very much himself very passionate and interested in many forms of fighting, and especially the combat arts, right? I think there was a reason why they didn't want to leave it as pencak style. They also wanted to leave it around different other different systems of fighting, so that, you know, audiences don't just get bored watching the same style all the time, and that it's not only minimized to one school of fighting or one system of fighting, but towards how can that system of fighting, so in this case our main character Rama, how does he navigate the entire building using his silat skills, right, against other fighters who might be even bigger and much more, you know, capable of taking him down through their own skills. These films kind of just, you know, show and pretty much demonstrate how action choreography can go beyond the limits. We pretty much get a chance to see how silat kind of tells a narrative story, right? The action choreography, the fight choreography reflects onto the cinematography of the film, and it's such a nice they complement each other so well, because I think that adds more of that immersive experience where we're also seeing being a spectator of the martial arts style itself, right? And how, like, oh, you know, it's very much circular movement, it's very much within what pencak silat is trying to demonstrate, right? Which is the art of pain. And you know what the funny thing that I love about this cover on the Raid here? You know what it says? It says here, 1 minute of romance, 99 minutes of non-stop carnage. Like, you can't get more action-packed than that, having that boom right on the front cover of the DVD. It speaks for its name, right? The film speaks for its name and for what it stands for, right? Is basically a rookie SWAT officer basically going through the slums of Jakarta along with his SWAT team members, right? Trying to take down a crime lord, right? And of course in the second film, Berandal, we see the same exact character, Rama. He's basically trying to navigate his way to the top of the hierarchy of the gang who controls everything, right, in Jakarta. Yeah, and same goes for the Raid 2 Berandal. Talk about Hammer Girl, man. Talk about her scene, her fight scene, that choreography that occurred in the train. Like, girl had her 2 weapons of death with her, and she owned that entire thing, you know, with her shades too. I love those little details, you know, that fight when she had with Rama, along with Baseball Batman, and when her shades come off, you can see that mark that she has in her eye. It really tells a story behind maybe their upbringing and who they were before, or how they end up becoming the characters that they were, right? You can tell that there's a lot of history based on those small details, and it's like, it's such a graphic novel moment. She was way too good, man. I felt like the character fit her so well. I just love Julia Stiles so much, and she's also a very underrated female action star too. You can't forget that iconic kitchen fight scene between Rama's character and the assassin. This was top-notch, and I say that again, top-notch fight choreography right there. Oh gosh, guys, I remember sitting through that and just being like, wow. You know, like, this is action cinema, guys. I was like, action cinema is beautiful. I know I've mentioned this in a previous video too. I really love that part where Eka, the guy who plays Eka in the film, the scene where he's being chased down by the crime group, the way how he just reloads his handgun is just really badass, because you never see anything like that in an action film, and specifically for this one, I thought it was really badass. And you have Rama fighting a bunch of dudes in a car. choreography was really unique, very different, very much tight-knit and intimate, where we do see what's happening in the car, but also what's happening with Eka, right, and how he's basically trying to take down these other guys, right? And just the cinematography, if you get a chance to see the behind the scenes of how they did, I think it was the scene where the camera goes into Eka's car and it transitions out, right, and we get a chance to see another car kind of drive by, is really, really cool.
We have a camera pass, so the camera's in one car and we're passing it physically to another car, traveling at 50. So 2 operators but 1 camera, and we'd start the movement and pass to the other operator. Those kind of give me the most kick because they're really simple tricks, but they just work really well.
Moving on to Merantau. So Merantau, I think when I watched a couple of interviews where Gareth was talking about the film, technically I think he said that Merantau was supposed to be the raid 2 for Berandal, but they already did the choreography in Merantau as the layout, the pre-layout for the second film, Berandal. But Merantau was kind of set on its own, right? And of course, it was Gareth Evans' very first film in Indonesia, and of course, where we get to see Iko Uwais rise as an action star. It probably wasn't his best action film, but it was pretty good, I would say. Iko plays a character named Yuda, and his character basically, he's embracing a path called Merantau, which in Indonesian, I believe it translates to a path of wandering. He's a country boy, right? He moves to the city, and he goes to Jakarta to experience life, right? To kind of evolve and, pursue a career, find a job, and, live his life as much as he can, right? And understand what it's like to live in the city, right? And so Yuda goes on this journey where he encounters a girl. She works at a club, I believe, and she's getting threatened and abused by somebody who controls her, right? And so he kind of witnesses that, and he goes on this journey of basically trying to save the girl, right? And he's a tomato farmer, but I don't want to spoil it too much for anyone who has not seen it yet. He kind of does a style called Silat Harimau. I love how he does a lot of those wide, I think it's those long shots, as well as keeping those shots going, so very immersive. It's very much of a John Woo, I feel like it's kind of John Woo influence. I think he took influences from Hard World, the hospital scene, if you guys know, in those long takes, right, of the sequence. I think he just did an amazing job in that film. And of course, the ending of Merantau was just, and the chase scene that his character Yuda has with one of the little boys in that film, Adit, right? It was just so captivating. I thought it was so cool, and the long takes, the sequences as he runs through the city. The fight scenes are very well choreographed. Iko's fighting again for his life in the city. People are trying to put hands on our boy Yuda. I really love the fight scene between Iko's character and Yayan when they have in the elevator. Go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. I highly recommend that you do watch it. Moving on to Headshot. I love the film Headshot, and the reason being is because we have our gal, Julia Estelle. Julia Estelle stole the show in this film, and she also stole the show, and she owned the film in The Night Comes For Us. Man, she is probably one of my all-time favorite female actresses to play assassin type roles. She's such a badass, and she doesn't even have to try so hard, but she already looks like a badass. Her fight scene on the beach with Iko in this film is so cool. I think most people said, when I read the reviews about this film, some people were just like, oh, it's the Jason Bourne version, but Indonesia style, where Iko he loses his memory and he's trying to figure out who he is, but there's some, the gang that he was previously associated with, they're trying to find him, and so yeah, he gets tracked down. Yeah, they have like a big fight scene pretty much near the end. The film is directed by Timo Jakianto. He also directed the film The Night Comes For Us too, but when it comes to The Night Comes For Us, it's game over, guys. It's game over. This film completely threw me off and blew me away in such a great way. It definitely just, oh man, it took action horror, action thrillers to a totally new level. And yes, we do have Iko playing a villain this time, and Joe is our main protagonist, and we do have Sunny Pang starring in the film along with Julia Estelle. I really do think Julia Estelle, she kind of stole the show in this one, just with her character and just the way that she portrayed the operator herself. It was so awesome. That fight scene between her and I think it was two other women assassins, correct me if I'm wrong, was just beyond me. Like, it was just out of this world, like, brutal and violent and bloody. And the way how she handled them too, like the way how she handled all those attacks, and the way how the operator, the scene that she had fighting Joe Taslim's character Ito, I'm sorry. I felt like, I think she did like, what? Was it like an RKO on the bathroom sink? Oh man, it was so badass. And when she just kind of takes off her assassin, you know, mask, right? I thought it was a really cool detail that they did. She was my favorite character in the entire film, right? That fight scene that we see Joe Taslim have, the scene where he takes on a bunch of guys, right? And you have that soundtrack playing in the background. Oh my gosh, like there's a guy with a bat. He just slashes his way through. It's such a classic action horror moment right there. The Night Comes for Us is definitely action horror at its finest. And if you have not seen the film yet, I recommend that you do if you're interested in this specific type of genre. To kind of tie everything together, Indonesian action cinema, always gonna be with me, man. It's always going to inspire me. It's always going to, you know, stay with me because of the fact of how it made me feel when I first witnessed it, and how it very much exposed me to the art of pain, which is pencaksilat, right? Indonesian martial arts. I realized that a lot of these films, they're cinematically very, very captivating to watch, and also very mesmerizing too. And just the fact that every single character moves in a different way. It's just so much momentum, right? Everything is just go, go, go. But nonetheless, guys, I really do want to say and express and share my enthusiasm and excitement for Indonesian action cinema. I really do hope that the industry does blossom for them, and that, you know, we get a chance to see more of this stuff for sure. Of course, if it's not coming from Gareth Evans, then definitely, I don't know. And I think also too, there was a Malaysian film called Silat Warriors, which I have yet to watch. But it's also a film that focuses on the art of pencaksilat as well. And there are a couple of films in Malaysia where they are focusing on silat, but in their own form. So I think that's something interesting to dive into if you're someone like me and you like to kind of look into those things as well. And if you're not familiar with Indonesian action cinema, I highly recommend that you dive into it if you're like someone like me and you like to, you know, understand and research these things, or you're just a fellow fan of fight choreography, you like to see people getting their asses kicked, you know. Indonesian action cinema is definitely a go-to because it's either going to surprise you or impress you.